Someone wrote me a very long and particularly whiny letter about my previous stand-up show, Why John Howard Really Sucked, available at friendlyjordies.com. And it is the best ad for that show that you could possibly imagine. I know this feedback is unsolicited and therefore might be out of place, but I noticed you read even the dumbest comments from boomers, so I thought I'd give it a go. I most certainly do read out the dumbest comments, Dahl, so may I say congratulations, Toots. You just made the Hall of Fame. If you just changed a few small things about your show, you could broaden your viewer base significantly, which I think would help us all, as your core message is really important. What core message? Adult man's Warhammer 40k hissy fit? But please, continue, O mighty social media oracle who has accumulated an audience of precisely 0. What wisdom do you have to bestow? First and foremost, I think you really don't need to resort to sexism. Oh, I see where this is going. You want me to make a stand-up show that's basically an extended Gillette ad. As we've discussed numerous times on this channel, all the isms, communism, feminism, fascism, sexism, all of these isms are relentlessly championed by people so solipsistic they legitimately think, yeah, these deliberately broad, fuzzy terms fit in with this one thing that I personally don't like. Of course they do. I'm me. I'm not a black hole of happiness. I'm the center of the universe. This is how easy it is to do what she's doing. You ready? For the rest of the video, I'm going to refer to the writer of this letter as homophobe. According to homophobe's very concrete, universally accepted assessment of sexism, I have committed this most egregious of crimes by stating, I'd tap that. Which is a misquote. I said would tap. Would. There's an abbreviation, dickhead. Show some c***ing decorum. But at least we now know what she thinks sexism is. Sex. How literal. This is something Twitter and Reddit addicts really need to wrap their heads around. You ready? It's gonna wig you out. Most people are getting laid. Therefore, sex is a part of their life, and they talk about who they would and wouldn't have sex with, because doing so is the exact opposite of you. Fun. Already I could profile you to the police with the information I have on you. This is my artist sketch. You ready? If you think the accusation that she appears to equate sex with sexism is a little premature, like me in bed, yes! See? It is fun! F*** off! Well, it's fun for me, not for my girlfriend. And the necrophilia comment about Macron's wife are, in my view, completely unnecessary. Want to know what that comment was? Preview. Could be like France and have a prime minister that's a necrophiliac. I love short, sharp, baseless accusations like that, just chucked into this show. Yeah, the president of France fucks dead people. Anyway, back to the economy. So according to homophobe, necrophilia is sexist. I don't think that's the most disturbing part of having sex with a dead body. The fact that you do makes me think you probably shouldn't be throwing stones. Necrophilia is only sexist if it involves a woman. I know, because she mistook that joke for being at Macron's wife's expense when it was actually at Macron's. So glad we cleared up the joking about a woman in any capacity whatsoever as sexist, while at the same time having legitimate issue with men even existing. I noticed that the crowd was 60 to 70% male. Is not. Thank you for guiding me through rules that are even more arbitrary, nonsensical and minute than subatomic particles, and much like quarks, seem to appear out of thin f***ing air. You're looking at this the wrong way. 60 to 70% for a YouTuber? That's pretty much a women's rights convention. So what if the audience was 60% male homophobe? What if it was 100% male? Do you write these letters of concern to all-female plays? Studio 10? Do you go picket against that all-female Uber service? No. In fact, I'm willing to bet you're their only customer, and even then they probably wish you weren't. Looks-based jokes, especially about women. Oh, really? I would have assumed you were going to say men this time. No? Women. Women again. Well, at least there's a pattern emerging. If the joke reminds me of me in any way, it's not funny! Singling out people for being old, though. No, that doesn't remind me of me. Play on. I'm just old. See? And not funny anymore. Oh, so that's why my looks-based jokes get some of the most solid laughs of the show. All this time I assumed that people laughing meant that it was humorous, but no, it's not funny anymore because the concept is old. Just like the laws of motion worked in Isaac Newton's time, but now... don't. I'll tell you what's actually old and was never funny. People like you going to a stand-up show and then afterwards deciding, that's it, I'm writing a letter. Why go? Just hang around a Fitzroy bookstore with a bunch of other low self-esteem, in quotation marks, individuals, timidly reaffirming how morally superior you all are, when in reality you're just a bunch of consumers of very niche products like overpriced cheese boards. What about this one? Isn't it just so bohemian? Thus proving the truism, you are what you eat. See? Looks-based jokes work, you breathing camembert. Secondly, and relatedly, I think your comedy has just generally a few blind spots when it comes to rationability. Shocking. I cannot believe that someone who walks around life going, that lamp is phallic, sexist. That dog shit is brown, racist. That ATM is not a gay TM, homophobic, would find issue with, judging by the length of this letter, every sentence of the show. I think jokes about people with Tourette's, one of the most bankable jokes in the act, or calling people retards, which I did not, you spaz, is just old. Again? I think you have some blind spots when it comes to ability. Old, boomer. Oh my god, what an ageist. Won't be funny anymore in 5 years. How does she know these two particular jokes are both simultaneously dated, old, and apparently of the time? Won't be funny anymore in 5 years. Who wrote this letter? Female Doctor Who? No wonder she has tip after tip of how to tank an audience. I think if you brand yourself as a progressive, then you should take that seriously. I don't brand myself as a progressive. I don't brand myself as any of those flavor of the month political frappuccino marketing gimmicks. The reason I don't is because as soon as you do, you get chucked in the same basket as tits like you. You call yourself a progressive because you personally like that title. You've decided what it means in your head despite everyone on earth having a different definition of what progressive means. But no, whatever the definition of progressive is in your head is correct by pure ordainment of you existing. I think, therefore I am progressive. Like virtually anyone who calls themselves progressives, libertarian, conservative, they're using those terms because they don't know anything about specifics, which will become very apparent in a second. But for now, dig this. I think using foreign accents is a really dangerous territory to tread on as a white person. You were shocked that I use accents. Did you wander into my stand-up show mistaking it for a change the date rally? Don't do that again, Stitch! There's already a tailor-made show designed for your very particular flavor of the month morality. It's like they read your mind, because it's like you functioned in a hive mind. It was called Tonightly. It was cancelled due to a total lack of public interest. Turns out, no one apart from the people that work at Junkie are narcissistic loners with a victim complex, so future Junkie employees think that the byproducts of private schooling extorting money from the public purse to lecture the public about how privileged they are is entertainment. I certainly don't. I'd rather be buggered to death in Mexico by a frog. I seriously think I'd feel less violated by that than watching 2 minutes of Tonightly. More generally, I also think you're completely ignoring Indigenous issues. It makes you look like you have a huge blind spot for how terrible economic policy disproportionately affects Indigenous Australians. Yes, how dare I, in a show about federal fiscal policy in the late 90s, not talk about Aboriginal remote access in far north Queensland. What a blind spot. Just like I didn't even mention Ryan Seacrest. What? Anything else you'd like to randomly tis me for not discussing? Why Coke Lime didn't work? Bull ants? Chicken Run? Imagine reading her Rotten Tomatoes account. Edge of Tomorrow was a non-stop futuristic thrill ride, but it didn't mention Aboriginals once. That's old. 0 stars. Definitely not a forward-thinking movie. Speaking of Hollywood, just to prove to us all that these criticisms are from a very original and awakened being, she repeats the Hollywood tagline verbatim. In short, I think your comedy, like all good comedy, could greatly benefit from a bit more diversity in the writer's room. First off, what writer's room? The one where I ask my editor, who has no legal training whatsoever, if certain sentences could get me sued? What about if I said this about Joe Hildebrand?
Yeah, that's probably fine.
Second, even if I had one, your view of good comedy by a one completely abstract metric of diversity would include Up Late with Seth Meyers, defunct ABC shows, Broad City, A Little Late with Lily Singh, The Weekly. All shows that if you look up their genres, you're genuinely confused as to why they're not listed under horror. While the greatest comedy of all time, The Simpsons, is not good comedy because this was their original writer's room. Disgusting much? You're stupid. You're so stupid that even if you were versing a dead chimp in a game of chess, I'd bet on its ribcage collapsing onto the board and moving the bishop. Diversity has nothing to do with comedy. Even if I had a writer's room, even if it was stacked with Odin-worshipping skinhead Aryans that were all from that same inbred gene pool in midsummer, I wouldn't care as long as they were good. Because comedy, like all good comedy, benefits from being good. Lastly, oh thank God, I agree that the mainstream media is responsible for a lot of the misinformation around the Liberals and Howard, but I think you need to do a better job of differentiating between ABC, SBS and Murdoch media. Sky News with Peter Credlin has a significantly different agenda than 7:30 Report with Lee Shales. Why? Because you say they do with your patented zero evidence to back it up power move? I have an entire hour-long stand-up show explaining why that's completely and utterly wrong. I invite you to come along. Just tell me which night I need to memorise Krusty the Clown's flapping dicky monologue.
We flap our dicky wrong time.
Just for you, sweetheart. In my view, it's not your view, it's I views. ABC and SBS are pro-government, as you said, but that doesn't make them immediately anti-Labor. Okay, let's put aside the fact that it by definition does. If you're withholding vital information about the government's involvement in the fish kill, the looming recession, the handling of corona, and the bushfires while not allowing Labor to make the counter case, what do you think that makes them?
I just want them both to win.
I think you need to talk about the corporate agenda of establishment media. Labor is just another corporate party that caters to its vested corporate interests. The party that brought in the mining tax, the price on carbon and the banking inquiry, all against the interests of the three most organised and powerful sectors of corporate control in the country, are somehow catering to vested corporate interests. Eye-opening. All this time I was looking at real life when I could have just blindly accepted Facebook echo chambers parroting.
Sure, Labor's better than the Liberals, but that's like saying a kick in the nuts is better than getting your hand chopped off.
This is especially apparent when it comes to Labor's current abysmal environmental policy, which is riddled with concessions to the coal lobby. Oh, you've clearly read it, or much more likely you've just been on Reddit. Their abysmal environmental policy explained in detail here and here that the Climate Council described as bringing a fire truck to the climate crisis while Scott Morrison was bringing a watering can, and even then, that's an understatement, as they were literally bringing a fleet of aerial firefighters. Look at Labor's disgraceful ranking as third best environmental managers on Earth. What? Only bronze? Their disgraceful current environmental policy of reducing emissions in Australia lockstep in key with scientific recommendations and track record that says they will exceed those targets, as their 2020 target was 5%, and by the time they left office 7 years ago, it was already at 8%, where funding for the Department of the Environment and CSIRO would greatly be increased under a Labor government, hundreds of national and marine parks would be created, and we'd have some of the strongest environmental protection laws on Earth. I said they were 100 times better than the Liberals, but that's still not good enough for me. Those environmental laws would have stopped hundreds of species from going extinct. That ain't happening now. In part, due to misinformation regurgitated from forums infested with disgraceful imprints of recycled internet swill like yourself. This is what really yanks my chain. Call me and everyone else a racist and a sexist all you like, Dal. At the end of the day, that's all a good lark. But when people like you sit there and dump on the only proper vessel of governance in the country because you're too ignorant, self-assured and hedonistic to look at a fucking graph, well, that's when you start ruining it for everyone. Anyway, I hope this helps. Oddly, it does. Because you, madam, are a walking contradiction of the Delphic Oracle, know thyself, and comedy, good comedy, preys on that. You don't represent the sentiments of the general population. You don't represent the future. You're nothing but an aberration of a very niche subculture of Frankenstein corporate skin chart graphs and Reddit backwaters infested with LARPing revolutionaries that can be best described as woke Borgs. You are the perfect storm of a lack of social skills meets superiority complex meets Twitter meets a parasite that burrows inside an ant's brain and makes them want to kill themselves. Think about what a living joke you are. A letter you produced is being used as an ad for the very show you're chastising. So yes, milady, you did contribute something constructive. Now kindly, get f***ed. Everyone else liked the video, and as for me, well, I'm going to watch myself perform Why John Howard Really Sucked one more time while jacking off to it.
Please share and comment below. Comment.